Inspire Instructor podcast, where the learning never stops. Welcome, you wonderful people, to the Inspire Instructor Training podcast. And it's season 3, episode 2. And today we're going to be talking about how to implement games into our driving lessons. I've got the wonderful Todd, the other half of Inspire Instructor Training, on today, so you'll get the whole team today. We're going to discuss quite a few different games that you can play in your lessons, the benefits of those games, and how you can implement them into your lessons. Before we head over to the show, I just want to talk to you about our mentorship and the benefits. So if you enjoy these podcasts, you enjoy listening to Inspire, within the membership we also have a podcast format. So all of our courses and Zooms go up onto the podcast, so you can listen in that format and do all of your extra CPD and learning in that podcast format. Alternatively, if you prefer to watch them on the videos, then that is absolutely fine. They're all there on the website. The other benefits of being in the membership is that you get to join our Facebook group, where it's a great community over there where you can ask questions quite freely, and everyone's there to support each other, and it's a really good supportive group there. So if you're enjoying this content, please do consider joining the membership. You can find all the details out at inspireinstructortraining.com, or feel free to message me or Diana and we can answer any questions that you may have. So on to the show. So welcome to the podcast, the other half, some might say the better half, not me, of Inspire Instructor Training. So welcome, Diana, Todd.
Hey, I would say the better half. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't really.
Might put a poll out later.
Cheeky to you. I am actually really cheeky, so I'm going to publicly apologise for that right now. Sorry.
Fair enough. So we're going to be talking about how to teach games on your driving lessons today. So our second episode in our how-to series. So first of all, before we talk about how do we teach games on our lessons, let's go for why first. So why do we teach games on our driving lessons? What's the benefit?
It's fun. It's just fun. It creates a different dynamic. I think pupils have sometimes a preconceived idea of what the driving instructor is going to be like. Usually, yeah, you have a preconceived idea, and it's, like, let's sit down and do a 1 hour cockpit drill, or this is the process and this is what you must do, otherwise we will die. So for me, it's all about making it real. We don't teach for the sake of teaching. The whole point is that they're going to be able to buy into the process and understand how this is going to benefit them in their real life. And I think what games do is it makes it feel more realistic and not just a sort of learning environment. Even though they're great for learning, it just makes it real, keeps it fun. I also think, as a mum of a daughter who's very much a kinesthetic learner, for those types of learners, I think it helps it stick more as well. And it's beautiful with the other learners as well, but certainly, people that just like to practice and see the value of things from practice, it really helps them.
Yeah, I agree. I also think actually it makes it goal driven. I think when you're playing, most of these games tend to have a winning element at the end, so you're driven, you're aiming for something. So I think it can really help with that idea that you're trying to achieve something, which you should be doing when you're not playing games anyway. But I think it really focuses the mind. I've quite often seen that on lessons where you introduce a game and suddenly the thing you've been trying to work on for the last 10 minutes clicks, because they're like, oh yeah, I need to do this, I need to win, and that it brings out that little bit of competitiveness and that can help them sort of kind of get over the line of that extra bit of learning. So that the goal sort of kind of aspect can be really helpful from a pupil's point of view, but also from an instructor's point of view, because it helps them be clear what the focus of the lesson is at that point as well. So good, yeah, I think that's helpful. How do you find your learners react to it?
Well, they don't get an easy time with me because unfortunately I'm very competitive. I don't make it easy for them, and I suppose that's the point, isn't it? Um, don't get me wrong, there's a bit of give and take with some of the games that I will make it fair. Because it wouldn't be fair if I was, calling out signs where I've driven up and down the road umpteen times. So there's ways of managing that so that it is a more fairer environment. The learners love it generally as a rule of thumb. They love that sort of challenging environment. Um, they get a much greater sense of achievement because I think sometimes the goals, and you've hit the nail on the head, sometimes the goals feel a little bit intangible. And this feels like it's something fun that they're working towards, whereas the whole passing the test thing feels a little bit grandiose, if you like. And yeah, we break it down, and you've got roundabouts and junctions and topics and awareness and all the rest of it. But I just think it focuses their attention a little bit like with their goals and needs when we look at the part three form. It focuses their attention on that specific need at that point in time, and it's just a teaching aid to help get that point across. Sometimes you'll find, though, that they're so focused on the objective of the game that other elements of safety go out the window. And I think that's important to know as an instructor as well, when you're so busy trying to find the signs and they're wobbling about all over the place. So it's worth making sure that people know that they need to manage that risk as well.
Yeah, we might dig into that when we talk about the games. Like specifically, we'll talk about maybe what to watch out for with each particular game. So, what's your favorite game?
Oh, interesting question. Probably the no stopping game. The no stopping game is probably my favourite. I think. Shall I explain a little bit about it now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the no stopping game is ultimately awareness, anticipation, and planning, but just rolled into like a fun little environment. And what I do with that game is, first of all, explain to them the objective of the game is not to stop the car, which is actually harder in an auto. It's one of the very few things that's harder in an auto. It's harder in an auto than it is a manual because the clutch control is so much more easier to get that like real snail like pace. And what we say is we'll do 5 minutes. You'll get three passes, and within those three passes, you'll be able to stop the car, but hopefully you'll be able to see things early enough that you will not stop the car. The first loop, I will typically talk them through and I'll tell them what I'm thinking of and what I'm seeing and what I'm expecting to happen and what I would be doing about it. We very, very rarely stop the car in that first 5 minutes. And then I hand it over to them, but I'll question them on what they're thinking, seeing, doing, what they're going to do about things. Again, for 5 minutes, they're allowed three passes. So if they get to 5 minutes, and as long as they've had less than three, they haven't stopped the car, then it's still, they've succeeded in the game. And then the third loop of 5 minutes is independent. I still have a caveat to that where I would just say, what's your thoughts? Tell me your plan. But if I'm comfortable and confident, then I just leave them to it and I just shut up, basically. And we go off and do that for 5 minutes. And then we do stopwatch. And stopwatch is me shutting up. And then we go and see how long they can go without stopping. Again, they're allowed three passes because, there are anomalies, if you like, when you get that abnormally long traffic light, typically, like if it's a roadwork or a temporary lights, or indeed, and this is really worth highlighting, a stop sign. Because I remember being caught out by this once, and I was looking, I thought, I'm going to wait and see what happens. Are they going to commit to the game or are they going to follow the law? Turns out they were really committed to the game. So we did talk about that. And again, that was a learning opportunity as well. So, and that's how I do it. And the longest I've had, and I had to stop her only because we were having to like change tactics for some reason, or changed something. I can't remember why. So I actually had to pull her over, but the longest I had without stopping was 38 minutes in an auto, which is harder. It's much harder to go at that snail-like pace. So, and I think she could have gone to flipping Scotland, to be honest with you. She was so focused. And the whole point of it is being in tune with your environment, being at one, if you like, with the road and what it's communicating to you. So if you have that green light that's been on green for ages and it's miles away in the distance, it might be worthwhile just taking a breath off of the gas and just allowing it to change so that you can roll up, and then it'll come to green eventually when you get there, or vice versa. It's looking to the rights and being aware of the build up of traffic and how likely it's going to change. Looking at traffic up ahead, if they're putting their brake lights on, might you want to slow down and ease off? So it's literally awareness, anticipation, and planning. But they don't necessarily put the link together, and they just think I'm a bit mad when I say, you're not going to stop. Not even for red lights. And they go, what? And I think they think I'm having like a midlife crisis in the driving lesson. Um, Sometimes you'll find, because what I used to do actually for the no stopping game is I used to kind of let them just go off and do it. And I found they never really understood what I meant, and they just end up stopping all the time. So I find that talking them through what I'm seeing, thinking, and doing really helps cement that process. And then they just kind of get it. And they're like, oh, it's not a midlife crisis. She's actually helping me understand the roads. So, yeah.
I do enjoy that look that you get from a pupil when you first explain the game, like
Hmm.
you've just absolutely lost the plot.
Hmm.
I'd also actually suggest within that a demo maybe
Mm.
of going to drive without stopping to show them how it's done. I think I've done a video on it at some point as well, to help them sort of kind of understand that
Mm.
like this is how you do it, and like you said, because it can be a difficult concept for them to understand and grasp. The There's an interesting bit that I do slightly different actually, because I like the fact you give them little free strikes, but I'm far meaner than that. So you don't get any strikes with me, other than stop junctions, because like you say, you can't break the law. The What I do is and I'm sure you do this within your free strikes anyway, but I don't give them the free strikes. So I've changed my no stopping game slightly to no unnecessary stopping games.
Mm.
Um, because I've had it before where the stop the not stopping becomes part of the game rather than
Mm.
good driving. And I think that's where the game develops. I think you start off with the game and sometimes you're creeping forward and you're edging forward, but you wouldn't do that as a driver. That's just part of the game.
Mm.
If as a driver you would have just come in as slowly as you could have, but eventually you just go, yeah, I'm just going to stop here. But there are benefits to that on a lesson because they're learning that clutch control and that finesse as well. But the question I always ask when we do come to a stop is, could we have avoided it? And
Mm.
and that's where we want to go to is could we what did we do everything we could have done? Did we come off the gas early enough? Did we see it early enough? Um, did we clutch control early enough? And all of that, did that all come in early enough to avoid an unnecessary stop? So I think that then leads it into becoming less about the game and more about how we would actually implement it in real life. So in real life, when I'm driving around, I'm always playing the no stopping game,
Yeah.
but not as extremely as if you're playing the game. So
Yeah.
if the traffic ahead is clearly stopped and going to be stopped for a while, I will come in slowly, save all that fuel and trickle in, but I'm okay with coming to a stop. Whereas if I can see the traffic's moving off, then yeah, I'm going to time that and get there at the right time. And same with like roundabouts and other situations. So yeah, I think you can tweak it like that, with that sort of kind of making it realistic. Because I think again we want to. I'm okay with the game to start with, and then I want to make it realistic because I want them to take it out into real life. I don't want them to think that this is a game that we play um, on driving lessons. The one where I do love doing it as well to maybe is isolate the thing you're teaching as well. So if you're doing roundabouts, for example, no stopping. Like how many roundabouts can you get through without stopping? Like rather than a
Mhm.
timeline, like like how time. You can challenge them in that sort of kind of how many roundabouts can we go like not like what and then they'll do five and then stop at the next one and then okay that's fine did we need then we analyze did we need to stop what could we have done
Mm.
differently and then we go right can we go and beat five and so they're constantly trying to get beat their like top score.
I like that. I haven't done that, and I really like that.
Is there anything else about the snow stopping game you want to mention?
I just think it's a bit of a game changer, to be honest with you. It is one of my favorites, and it's dead easy.
So you said about like you implement it once they've got the skill for driving around, and absolutely, I think that's partly actually I'm actually going to contradict what I said because I think sometimes I introduce this for that skill level
Yeah.
because it can be really helpful for people like this is more manual than auto, but it can be really helpful if you've got someone struggling with clutch control because
Yeah,
I think I remember watching a video of Lou doing it, and what she said was, if you don't like stopping,
don't
no,
stop.
if you don't like moving off, stop stopping. And actually, that
Yeah,
can be really helpful for that sort of kind of style. I think also the I'm just thinking of like when do we implement this because I think everybody should do this as part of their training at some point during their learning process because it really works on that like awareness and planning issues. But are there any particular points where you've got a pupil struggling with a particular issue that you think, yeah, now it's time, now is the moment to bring in the no stopping game?
it's interesting because it was total disconnect in my brain there because I'm thinking of the game, no stopping. And the game as a whole, I tend to introduce later on when I'm doing the awareness anticipation plan, and I'll do that as the first get to go to, and then if we're struggling or it's not something that that's working or we're a bit sort of jarring with the car, then I'll introduce it. But actually, I do introduce it straight away with junctions, straight away. So it's interesting, but I don't introduce it as a game. I just kind of say, I want you this time to do everything you can not to stop this car. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to pull out and pray. It means, control us in a safe environment so that you know that there's nothing coming, but you're in control enough. And we talk about what we're going to do to, if sometimes depending on the environment, I'll just let them go play. But yeah, that's very much first, second lesson sometimes, actually, now that you've sort of brought my mind to it. But it's not a game, it's just a fleeting comment, but it feeds into the game for the
Yeah.
future, or feeds into the skill rather than the game, I would say.
I think absolutely. You're right. I bring it in on those early lessons
Mm.
when we're creeping through the junctions and trying to avoid stopping. I actually do sometimes introduce it as a game, not as like the whole no stopping, but um,
Mm.
I might just challenge them to do the next, like a little bit like you said, do whatever you can on this next one. I
Mm.
might sort of challenge them. Can we do a whole lap without stopping? That sort of
Mm.
kind of thing, and just introducing it as a concept. And it's same when you get onto the main road and you're doing traffic lights and situations like that. Again, just challenging them not to stop occasionally, and then when you bring it in later on for that, like you said, I think specifically the two times I bring it in is awareness and planning. I think when you want someone to be good at awareness and planning, no stopping is it fixes all of it in one go. It's just like the magic bullet. Um, the other one I think is judgment on roundabouts. I think
Mhm.
that it can be super by challenging them not to stop. They have to. I talked about on the last episode with Lee actually how pupils on roundabouts look for problems, not solutions. But if you're giving them that challenge of not stopping, they have to look for the solution. So it changes their mindset on the approach to the roundabout.
Mhm.
So it can be really sort of kind of crucial for that phase of their learning as well. But shall we move on and talk about your second favorite game?
Second favorite game actually probably is the yes no game. which it lends really nicely to what you were just talking about in terms of judgment at roundabouts. It's not just judgment at roundabouts, it's judgment in general, even at junctions, merging onto dual carriageways, all sorts of things like that. This is probably one of the only things I do offer a demonstration on. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with demos on other things, it's just the way that it's typically gone. There may be something for me to be mindful of for other topics. But with this, what I do is I will take swap seats. And you'll find that, like you said earlier, they're looking for problems at roundabouts. They're looking for cars. They're creeping up so slowly that the cars are inevitably going to come. They're looking for excuses not to go rather than to go. And I've typically, before doing this, sometimes it's sort of go round to houses depending on where we're at. I will have them stand on the side of the road and do that whole judgment thing with roundabouts so they don't actually have to do it. But I get them, once we do the yes no game, I get them in the passenger seat. They're the driving instructor, I'm the driver, and I say, how about you get to tell me what to do for the next 5-10 minutes? I'm not going to make a decision. I'm going to put the decision making process on you, and I'm not going to go unless you tell me to. I'm not going to go if it's dangerous, so you're still safe, but tell me using one word, yes or no, whether we can go. And what you'll typically find is if I'm driving up to that roundabout, even though I've said yes or no, they'll go, maybe like possibly after that red car, or oh no, no, not yet, no, no, but maybe after that, no, that's gone. Oh, yeah, yeah, go now, go now, and it's still that sort of like lack of judgment. So I will then do the roundabout and I'll say, look, I'm going to tell you how I'm deciding when to go. And as I'm approaching the roundabout, if there's nothing coming in front of me, on approach, I'm saying yes, 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 yes. Car comes, no, yes, yes, no, yes, 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 yes. And I'm looking to the right and I'm making that decision. I'm controlling that sort of fear in my brain. So I then hand it over to them and I get them to do it. Now, typically, when it comes round again, I will talk them through that. We'll swap seats. I'll give them the opportunity, but you sometimes find they still go back a little bit where they're like, yeah, maybe no. And I'm like, yes, 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 no, no, yes, 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 gas, yes, 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 yes. You know, just like get yourself out of there type thing. And they love that as well. They love the decision making process of that. You often find though, if it's a yes all the way up, their speed has to be reined in just before we take that bend on the roundabout. So they just have to manage that. Um, but yeah, that sort of helps. It really helps sort of focus their attention on the opportunities to go rather than the opportunities not to go. And they see the benefit in terms of, the speed choice that they've got going on, the gaps that they can take are much shorter because that speed on approach is really nice. And it's just experimental learning. How it differs from one roundabout to the other, even though it's a yes all the way up, they're still managing and changing their speed so that it can keep being a yes. Um, yeah, that's probably one of my favorites because it does click. I do use it in conjunction though with your advice, and I love your question where you say, is there anyone coming at us right now? Because like you said, sometimes with the yes or no game, they feel a bit self-conscious, um, where they're sort of verbalizing it. They get used to it the more you do it, but they do feel in that first instance a little bit self-conscious. So I can sometimes soften the blow with that if they need that extra bit of support. So anybody coming at us right now? No, let's go. Slightly opposite to the yes no game.
Throws a spanner in the works, but it has the
Yeah,
same effect.
it has the same effect.
Yeah, my favorite ever one on this was when the pupil started singing yes no, so yes 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 yes. It was brilliant. I might have to post the video of that, so everyone can, because, and again, that made it more fun,
Yeah.
and relaxed her, which a lot of what we when we talk about this game, it's a lot of it is that it's about relaxing them to a certain extent. It's about getting them out with their own head. I always describe it as when you're approaching a roundabout and you can see the pupil's mind like trying to do complex calculations of
Mhm.
where that white car's going, which what angle is his wheels pointing at, and sometimes we get in the way of that because we that they're the things we tell them to look for. And yes, we do look for those things as drivers, but almost on a subconscious level. Like it's not something you when I approach a roundabout, I'm not consciously choosing all of those different things. I'm taking a snapshot and saying yes or no. And I think this is what the yes or no game does. They have that experience, they've seen it happen, and it allows them to just really boil the decision down to, do I feel safe or not, basically, to go into the roundabout. And it takes all the noise out of their head, because you can't be over-analyzing it if you're saying the, and that's why it's quite important, I think, maybe to point out with this game, that it isn't saying yes or no in their head. They have to be saying it out loud. It
Yeah.
has to, and I know not all pupils are comfortable with that, and that's fine. Maybe go find a different solution for people if they're not comfortable with that. But it even if they're just whispering it, I think it can be helpful. But actually, the louder and the more confident that they're saying it, the better. The other one I liked, actually, when I did this game once with a pupil, was they were saying no but not slowing down. So that was quite fun. So they were, no, 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 we're still plowing into this roundabout. But she got so concentrated on saying yes or no, I think she forgot she was driving the car. And so we had to add in the word slow. So every time she said no, she would say slow. So no, slow, no, slow, no,
Yeah.
slow. And then
I like that.
that sort of kind of gradually got her there to that position until it became a yes, and then off we went.
I
And
like
and,
that.
and then the final one I add to this is that sometimes you'll, and this is the beauty, I think, of this game, is they'll say yes when they see the decision, but
Hmm.
they don't always go because their
Yeah.
feet don't agree,
Yeah.
basically.
Tail your
And now we both
feet.
we both teach auto, so I think when you're teaching manual, and we talked about this actually a little bit with Lee last week, um, when you're teaching manual, sometimes the issue there is that they don't have the confidence in the car control to move off. So they'll say yes, but they don't trust they're moving off, or even they do trust they're moving off, or they're a bit slow on it. And I think if that's the case, you need to isolate that skill and go and work on that skill. I think in auto it's slightly different because all you have to do is press the gas pedal. And so then it is about a confidence thing in them not trusting that decision. So, but it's great because you can see the difference. And I'll quite often say, well, they'll go, yes, yes. I'm like, toe feet. And,
See
and
that.
they'll do it. And I quite often get them to really understand the almost the time difference. It's like I always try and relate it to like the nerve. The brain says yes, but it got to get down their body to their feet, and I want to
Mm.
speed up that process, basically. And it's got nothing to do with what's happening in their body. It is that other part of their brain going no.
It's
um,
absolutely spot on. I was telling you earlier, and I had it today, pupil on a roundabout. She got the wrong exit, or sort of thought she got the wrong exit. She then fixated on one thing on the roundabout and decided to follow them off the roundabout, not safely, dive bombed me from one side to the other. And that's the problem when you start to like go in on yourself. If you're starting to give the fear a place to manifest, then it will. And that's when the crap happens. So the earlier we can get them to voice that decision making. You also said earlier about whispering it. So I had a pupil on test, and it was night and day difference when he spoke, when he talked himself through stuff, night and day. And I knew he wouldn't talk on tests, so we had to find alternative solutions. But as a sort of last chance, sort of, kind of thing, we were working on doing commentary style driving. And I'd said that I passed flying colours, lovely, lovely, lovely drive. And I was like, and of course, you didn't talk at all. He went, I did. He said I was whispering it. And I was like, right, brilliant. So, because I never heard it at all. And he went, I promise you I was. He said, I was even whispering the swear words when I knew that I hadn't fully checked the blind spot. And I think the examiner heard me. It's like, okay.
I had a pupil do full commentary through, and I think it's a great idea doing commentary on a test. And they were driving down the road and they turned into this new road and they didn't know what the speed limit was. But this pupil was like their commentary was everything that was in their head came out of their mouth. So they were driving along the road going, "Oh, I don't really know what the speed limit is. I missed the signpost." But and then they worked it out. They were kind of going, "Well, it's I can see the street lamps. It's either 20 or 30. It doesn't feel like a 20. And then there's a 20 sign over there, so this must make it a 30." And the whole time she was doing this, she was kind of doing 25, and just she was getting on to that point where it was gonna become a fault and she
Yeah.
needed to get on and she worked it out just in time. And I was sat in the back going, "Stop telling the examiner you don't know what the speed limit is."
I
But
think it's
but
brilliant.
but they worked it out. That was the key. And I think the examiner actually said, "I said you were close on that, but I love the way you worked it out."
Mm.
So it's really yeah, and it's the beauty of that commentary. Stopped her stressing about it because she's talking, so she had to work it out as she went. Shall we move on to our next game? Because I think we've talked about roundabouts more than on the roundabout podcast that I did. So what's our next game that you want to talk about?
I'm going to jump to one that I particularly, I've got loads of games that I play. But one of my favorite is A Day in the Life. So a day in the life is when we look at a typical day for the learner and what they're going to be doing in that day. And ultimately we go off and do it. So what does a weekday look like? What are you going to be doing during the week? Where are you going to be going? Who are you going to be meeting with? Let's go do that. And the benefits to that for me is, first of all, it helps them be in that real life environment. So if there's sort of any tricky situations or any, junctions, everybody has junctions they hate, um, then we can manage that. We can manage the panic, we can manage the sort of the layout, and then we can look at the challenges that they might face throughout the journey. So, how would it differ if you were traveling with your mates in the car, or who would you be dropping off first? And we have all those different types of conversations. Sometimes get the mates in the car as well. So what will you be doing at the weekends? Oh, well, I might be going to see a show, or I might be going to the pub, or um I play football, whatever. Right, okay, so where do you play your matches? Where are you going to go? Let's go there. And we go off and we do that. It might even be, I'm gonna visit my gran. Once I pass my test, I'm gonna drive to my nan's house because she's paid for the first block of 10 lessons. Right, should we go do that now? Let's go have a cup of tea with your nan. And we'll go and go to the nan's house. We'll sort of park, we'll pull up. And I love that. And I love it especially because you can see that it brings them that step closer. They can almost sort of visualize where they're going to do that after they pass their test, and what they're going to do. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite ones because it makes it feel quite real. And then I'll introduce things like, well, are you going to do the shopping? Depending on their age and what have you, I might say, well, what about your mum? Do you think she might like a hand with the shopping sometimes? Yeah, okay, so what does that look like? So we do supermarket sweep. We can tie in the two games. Well, how does parking in a supermarket when you know you need to do a full shop differ from when you're just nipping to the shops just to get a lettuce or whatever? Because obviously I would typically drive in, depending on, like the amount of shop that I need to get. Um, and actually, I'm really bad for that as a driving instructor. And we did this at the workshop. Do you remember? I drove, I reversed in because I'm that used to reversing in, and then realised I had 3 million things to get out the back, and there was a bush there. So it's stuff like that. when I'll be saying to them, right, well, what if you had to do your shop at night time? Where are you going to park in this big empty car park? And we talk about parking under a light and making sure they stay safe in that environment as well. And yeah, I think what I like about that is it gives them the opportunity to be a kind of real life driver. Do you know what I mean? And then we'll sometimes add a fuel stop in. We'll say, right, well, you're getting low on fuel. How are you going to find the nearest fuel station? Petrol fuel station. Why am I talking like this? Petrol station. Or I'd potentially say, right, I want you to imagine now that the roadworks are going on, this road's closed. What options have you got? How are you going to get to your nan's house from here when the sat nav keeps telling you to go through a road that is clearly closed? What's your options? So then we look at little different areas. Typically, we'll use their phone. We'll look at Google Maps. I'll go, right, well, what if the kids are wanting your phone and they're kicking off? What are you going to do then? And we just come up with little games. And I think we do that. I love having kids in the car because often the mums will give the phone to the kids to watch and do stuff and what have you. And I will, if that happens, I will say to them, I'll get them somewhere. Now go, right, it's up to you now to get us back home. How are you going to do it? And they go, I've got no idea. Well, what tools have you got at your disposal? Well, I've got my phone, I've got this, right? Okay, so could you borrow it off your daughter, and just see what your next couple of turnings are going to look like? And then we could go from there. Yeah, okay, let's give it a chance. And we did that the other day with a pupil, and she loved it. And I think I had a PDI in the back of the car at the time as well. And I'd said to her, right, pretend you've got your daughter in the car. Let's see how you're going to get home when she's nipping your head in the back, and you've not got access to your phone. What are you going to do? She did get us back. She got us back safely. She took the wrong turn in. So I don't know what to do. I said, what would you do if I wasn't here? It was nice. It was just really nice. And it helps keep it real because when they're in that environment in places that they've typically gone to as a passenger or in public transport or walking, they feel familiar enough that they can work things out. They go, I know if I get to the shops, I'll know where I'm at. I know where I'm at, and I think the shops are that way. Do you know what I mean? So it's just giving them that skill set to really cement that they've got the skills to be the best driver. And we're just there to speed up that process. So that's probably one of my other favourite ones.
Yeah, I love it, and it is like you said, making it real is the key, and I think it really shows that we're like everyone talks about like safe driving for life and not teaching them to pass a driving test.
Mm.
But I think when you actually deliver lessons like that, you're showing them that you're saying, look, that really, this is we're not trying to pass the test. The test is just a little blip on your driving journey that you have to get over. What we're really teaching you is this. This is what I want you to be able to do safely, and it's so much more than just driving the car. Like there's so many decisions you have to make
Yeah.
and things you have to take into consideration when you're doing those sort of kind of journey planning. If we're talking about the GDE matrix as well, it's now looking at level 3 and 4 within the GDE matrix when you're doing journeys of that context, and you're not just delivering how do you drive the car, what are the rules on the road. And so yeah, absolutely, that yeah, I think it's a must sort of kind of lesson. Where's the where's the best place of pupils taking you?
Oh, interesting. Best place. Oh, the cemetery. Yeah, the
Best place, I
cemetery.
said best.
The best, but from a learning point of view, yeah, they went to see the granddad.
God.
It was it was nice actually, but really quite funny in a way. But it was a lovely pupil. It was dead down to earth, and he was like, "I could go anywhere," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, on a Sunday, I would go see my granddad." I was like, "Right, well, should we go see your granddad?" And it was just nice. It was lovely. I mean, I stayed in the car. Do you know what I mean? Like but it was nice because actually cemeteries are quite hard to navigate.
Yeah,
You
they're
don't want to
normally
be rolling
awkward
over.
driveways. Yeah,
Yeah, but you don't also want to be rolling over the grass. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's just icky. So, yeah, so that was nice. Um, I've had
When he
several.
said, so just when he said, I want to go see my granddad, had he mentioned at that point that his granddad was no longer okay?
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking you're like thinking, oh mate, oh your granddad works here, or like,
No, no, we knew he was like, well, I can go anywhere. I was like, yeah, absolutely, within reason. Do you know what I mean? Like within a 40-minute radius. He's like, well, on a Sunday we go visit my granddad. I was like, okay. But he said, yeah, the cemetery. I was like, right, okay, let's go. And he was like, oh, that would
um,
be nice. So we went off and did that.
what I love about that though is that you're so now when he does that post test, he's no longer worried about that journey
Yeah,
because he's done it and he's been there and he's experienced it and worked out what issues might be on the journey. And I think that's the thing is I know pupils that I've taught in the past who they're worried about certain journeys, and this is maybe before like years and years ago before maybe I implemented this sort of kind of stuff. Um, and they yeah, they would be worried about those journeys, and it suddenly becomes this sort of kind of big deal. I remember when I passed my driving test, I suddenly had this. I remember driving up to the end of where my parents lived, the road, and it goes out onto a main road, and I was suddenly like, oh, wait a minute. If I get this wrong, no one's going to stop me. And is that some kind of like, fear sort of kind of thing? And I do wonder if that's because I hadn't been shown that responsibility, if that makes sense. I was obviously doing it on my own. I passed the test. I was driving fine, but I don't think maybe no one had made it clear to me that it was me. I was doing that. And so when I was suddenly, and I think it will always be a little bit weird that first time you drive on your own, but I
mm,
hadn't done any of those like trips to colleges or anything like that. And I think all of those journeys suddenly became a big deal because I was like, oh, where am I going to park? What am I going to do when I get to college? It was like all this sort of kind of big deals. And I think you can sort of alleviate that fear for a pupil and make them safer in that first sort of kind of 6 months when they're figuring all this stuff out.
well, it was nice as well because with the cemetery one, there was an emotional element to it as well. And we were talking about how, other people might be affected in and around the cemetery. Like, is it the first visit? Is it, if they've been coming for years, is it the anniversary? What impact might that have on their drive? And so it was a really like a great talking point actually. And it was just a nice moment, to be fair. It was a nice moment. I'll typically get things like the gym, and I think that adds pressure as well because I think in that gym environment you've got people performing, you've got that competitive streak as well, and like you said with the parking, it's quite rammed at the gym as well, so they feel that element of pressure as well. Sometimes we'll finish off there at college in front of their mates as well. I can't think of any other random ones that we've done. Oh, I had yeah, no, actually now that I think about it, I we took a pupil's breathing tube back to the hospital once. Um that was bizarre. And actually she had me come into the corridors with her as well. It was just, and I ended up almost giving her driving lessons in the corridors of the hospital, helping her follow the signs of where she had to go. Um, that was quite funny as well, to be fair. But hey ho, yeah.
That is a random one. I remember one of my instructors was saying that their pupil said, "Can we go to the shop today?"
Mm,
Um, and she generally wanted to pick up some shopping. And I think a lot of instructors might like balk at that idea and just think, I don't like you're on a driving lesson sort of kind of vibe. And I actually quite like it. I think again it makes it real. You're buying the shopper, you put it in the shopper, you maybe got to consider like how long is it going to be in the car, all these sort of kind of again, it's that thing, that consideration and you're making it real. The issue was he thought she was popping into the shop for like 5 minutes to grab a couple of things, and she came out with 3, 4 bagfuls of like a full shop and had been in there like 20 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Um, she was paying for the lesson, that's her problem. But he had to have a conversation with her saying, look, like, you're here for a driving lesson. This has cost you a fortune, like, to do that. But the idea of it, I quite like. They just needed to maybe have like a don't do a full shop. Um, uh,
Do you know what's interesting? I'd kind of go the other way because for me, that's all about communication. And if that pupil had said, this is quite tricky for me to get a full shop in, is there any way we could do it in the last 20 minutes of my driving lesson? I actually do my shop and then I drop it home. That's a no-brainer. Do you know what I mean? Because then, even as a driving instructor, I might go in and nip in and get some stuff myself. Do you know what I mean? I've done that with pupils as well. Because we forget it's not as easy for them. They've got to get a taxi. It's a real pain. Or they've got to rely on lifts and all the rest of it. So I've got a pupil where we've gone into Lidl, and I'm like, right, should we do about 20 minutes? And she'll go, yeah, I can get what I need in 20 minutes. Right, okay. So, and we'll make it real. It's not on her. I'm not doing my shop on her time, but I take advantage of that situation if she's there. Do you know what I mean? Or I'll help or what have you. But yeah, absolutely, I do that. And typically the lesson will overrun, and I allow for that. But it's about give and take. If you know that there's a pupil that would struggle, one with the shopping, two with getting there, etc., etc., see if you can build it into your lessons in one way or another.
no, I do. Yeah, I get it. For me, it's just that they're paying you quite a high hourly rate, and that 20 minutes is like a big chunk of money that they've just spent. And I I wouldn't want I absolutely, if they want to do it and they're adamant, but I'd want to have the conversation with them about this is the situation,
Pause.
and
Yeah.
so that I don't so that they don't feel like that I'm taking advantage of them, even though it's their decision to do this.
Yeah.
I want them to be aware that you are paying for this time,
Yeah.
and so, like, you can do what you want with this time, but it's going to slow down your learning process. And also make sure they're the one paying for the lessons. I think that's the other thing, is if suddenly somebody else is paying for the lessons, and then they're knocking on your door and saying, why have I paid for all this time, and they've not made any progress? I'm like, well, that's because we spend half of the lesson in the shop every week. They're really good at shopping, but the driving hasn't progressed. So I think you're right.
It's
Like,
a good point.
I think it's be flexible with it,
Yeah.
and don't dismiss it out of hand. But I think also some pupils might need that little bit of, maybe we could do this a different way, sort of kind of pushing the right direction. Because I think the pupil that I was talking about particularly, I think was actually using it as a way of getting out of driving, in a way, like a very
Yeah.
expensive way of getting out of driving. I think they didn't necessarily, it was nerves, and so I think they were trying to come away from that sort of kind of, like, it was a way out of it, basically.
See, it's interesting because, yeah, you make a really good point because the person I'm thinking of is very much the person that I'm forever giving extra time to anyway. And, it's very much that lesson would overrun anyway. So the
Yeah.
last 20 minutes is very much on my time. So, yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. Um, but it's interesting as well. I'm glad you flagged that because it's just weird how you can have one thought process where you're helping somebody, but somebody else's viewpoint on it could be way different. And yeah, no, but again, it comes down to communication, doesn't it? Really good point.
I think we have time for one more game. Let's have your final game.
Well, it's me, so I'm always cheeky and I'll squeeze into. But there's no, I'm joking. My other favourite one is I call it Facebook Marketplace or postcode lottery. I know that other people call it delivery driver and things like that. The reason I call it Facebook Marketplace is because I'm a mum and I shop on Facebook Marketplace, and that feels more real to me. I'm not a delivery driver. I don't plan on being a delivery driver, but I totally get the benefit
Just in
of
case
the
the driving
choice.
instructor goes down the bin.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But I just it just feels more real. to me with that. So, and what I do with that is I will look at you're typing in a random postcode or going on Facebook Marketplace over the past like couple of things that I've maybe bought or what have you, and then just typing in the postcodes and saying, right, you now need to pick up this doll's house for your wee one. How are you going to get there? How are we going to plan this route? What are we going to do? And then we talk about, looking for the roads, looking for, because we've had the skills of a day in the life of all the areas that you know. Now let's push the boundaries of that. You don't know where you are. You have no idea whether they're on the left or the right hand side of the roads. Bloody street numbers, and not street numbers, house numbers, nobody has them at the end of their driveways anymore. Various things like that. Well, how are you going to work out how far down this road it is? Where are you going to park? Are you going to block the person's driveway because they're expecting you? There's a whole host of different things that I do with that. And then I talk to them about like looking through the route first of all, so they can feel a bit more prepared. So what if we needed to pick up a few things? Now imagine it's little Poppy's birthday, and actually you've got the doll's house to get, you've got the pram set, and you need to pick up the cake. So let's plot out all of them. Which one would make sense to go to first? How are we going to make the best use of our time? Because you've got to be at the party at 2 o'clock. So I kind of add all those different elements into it as well. Or you've got to pick it up at 2, whatever it may be. And I just help them get that skill set. And for me, it feels real because, I use Facebook Marketplace. I sell on Facebook Marketplace like kids' stuff. And when I can be bothered, I usually give it to charity, but some things I just don't want to. I know that sounds terrible, but I just don't. I know it sounds terrible, but it has too much like sentimental value and stuff. I just, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, we'll go off and do that. And then I will probably use that as an opportunity to help them explore when their technology fails again. So we've practiced that in familiar areas. Right now, I want you to imagine you've not charged your phone. What options have you got here now? How, you've got no way back digitally. How are you getting back from here? You've got to you need to get to the next person. How are you going to communicate with them? So there's lots of different like challenges you can add into that as well. And I think there's an extra element as well when you're adding in a set amount of time. So if you're saying, right, you need to be back by 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, whatever, how can we make the best use of our time with that? Are you going to pull up on the right? You're going to pull up on the left, and a whole host of different things as well. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite ones as well. That usually is quite challenging.
Yeah, I quite like it as a game, and like I said, it brings in elements of the sat nav and using their own sat nav and things like that. I think it also brings in the like because normally that would be their phone, and then I think you can then have some phone conversations around having that on like driving mode and situations like that. I think it brings in quite a lot of different conversations. It's interesting you go down the Facebook market route, and I think that's possibly because you teach auto, and I'm with my main clientele of auto were mums with little kids, so it's a really useful sort of kind of tool. But I think it's make it for whatever pupil you have. So that lesson with a 17-year-old lad might not be the right context for them, and so we'd have to find out what is theirs.
Mm.
We actually had the conversation on the workshop not too long ago where Sally was talking about how I think it was her daughter was talking, or might have been a pupil. I can't remember exactly.
Right, with the trains.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was like, how do I like? And we were talking about. We actually weren't talking about this topic. It was about time pressures, and it was this concept of we had to get to a train time, and you're picking up all your mates, but one of them's late, and then the next one's a bit later. And now, how are you driving? How are you considering your journey? Because you've got to get to the train time, and I think that's a similar sort of context where because you might know where some of your mates live, but I know if I was like picking up my mates, I'd probably have to still put the sat nav in just to kind of remember where some of them live. So some I've been a few times, some I've maybe only been once, and I don't know. So it's still that concept of going places you don't know. But I also love the time element and I think you said this with the birthday cake, you have to kind of pick the birthday cake up at a certain time. Or actually, even with Marketplace, sometimes you have to pick them up at certain times because people
Yeah,
are, I'm only in for like 2 minutes. You need to be there at exactly that time. But I think that I love this idea, and I love the fact you could be going through this process and you could go, right, this house, this person's late, we're going to wait for 5 minutes.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
now you've still got to get to the train at 2 p.m. How's that going to affect your driving?
Mm,
And so it's making it real for that pupil or whatever, and that could be like like I'm not going to list a bunch of things because you need to talk to your pupils about the journeys they'll be taking, but trying to work out maybe what sort of kind of multi-stop journeys they're going to be doing, because I think it really like links the whole drive. And in a way, this is almost like what you like when people go and do mock tests for driving tests. The whole point of that is to create lists. Like what I get is it's sort of putting them in that test environment, but you're creating a journey that's got lots of different stuff on it. Well, this does that, but in a real way. Like this
yeah,
is your way of testing whether people's like ready for a driving test without even mentioning the driving test. Because if they can do this journey and consider all the things that you're taking into account, then that's when you know that you're happy not just to take them to a driving test, but to put them on the road.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. I liked as well, one thing I do like about the delivery driver more so than the Facebook Marketplace, but you can incorporate this in, is the environment that the delivery driver is going to have to pull up in. So the shops could be on the right, or like the takeaway place or what have you, could be on the right. So there's that, and because there's a whole host of shops, the spaces might be limited. So I like that part of the delivery driver, but you can mimic that in any setting. Do you know what I mean? It has to fit, like you said, with the pupil, um, and what makes sense for them. Even if it's like Christmas Day, you're dropping the Christmas presents off to the grandkids. Stuff. I know it's probably more familiar areas, but it's just getting them to think bigger picture as well. And I did say I would squeeze one more in, but this is super, super speedy. The one that I really like as well is race car driver. So try and get them to aid with the speedy emerges. I tend to get them in a nice big long straight stretch. And I'll say to them, right, I want you to get it to that next pole. And I used to do it more so in a manual, but get to that next pole in, did I do it in seconds? No, that was it. Get to third gear. That was it. Get to third gear by that second pole. That's what I used to do. Or the second lamppost or whatever it is, that you guys call it down here. But and that was good. That was really good because you'd see that sort of feet ready. And you had somebody recently that did like a bank robber or something, wasn't it? Getaway car.
that was on our mentorship page, wasn't it? And
Mm.
yeah,
And
I
they
love
got out the car and went, right, run. I got in the car, put the seatbelt on, started the car and went for it. And I love that. And I think I've kind of not done that so much in the auto because it's
no.
slightly easier.
I
But
do love the bank robbery game. I love the image of someone walking down the street, seeing these two people run over to their car,
Mhm.
jump in and move off, learn a car and move
Yeah,
off as fast as possible.
and
And
then
yeah,
pull in.
I love the concept. I loved how he kept it safe. I loved how they analyzed not just the driving, but they were even analyzing like which
Time.
way they were going to run because they
Mhm.
were bumping into each other and just making it fun. They timed it, and that yeah, it was a great way of making that skill of moving off at speed fun.
Mhm.
Pupils had a great time, but more importantly, the pupils learned, and
Yeah,
and And I think that's a really good one to try out as well. If anyone wants more details on how to deliver that lesson, then get in touch. I think also we have a course on this on the on our mentorship page as well. So we have a games course with a few extra games to what we've talked about today. And so absolutely that's something. And I think the beauty of the mentorship is that you can watch that video, and then if you don't quite get it, how you're going to put it in the lesson, you can come and ask us, and we can guide you through that process. So before we finish up, do you want to? I've just kind of mentioned the mentorship there, but do you want to tell the people out in the world how they can find us? This is weird asking, like it's normally how they can find you at the end of the thing, but how they can find us and what we offer.
So we are on inspireinstructortraining.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and what we do is we offer a mentorship so that you have the ability to ask us questions. You have the ability to learn the stuff that you might not necessarily know already, or just develop your skills. But for me, it's the community that we've created that really, really helps support that learning. I think everybody's all on the same page. We've got like veteran ADIs, but we've also got those that have just qualified. We've got PDIs just starting out on their journey. And on that site, we've got a whole list of courses where you have the opportunity to sit in on lessons and watch back on courses. And you also have live Zoom sessions where we sort of dissect topics in greater detail. And you have the opportunity to chat to us at any time. And we have live Q&As for free every Friday. We do a lot, and it's only £20 per month. So come join us, and we would love to meet you, or at least connect.
Brilliant. You always do a much better job of that than me. Thank you for coming on and talking about games. And I will see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Inspire Instructor Podcast, where the learning never stops.